Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So I talk about the alignment of the body, mind, and spirit, not the theoretical body, mind, and spirit based from the holistic allopathic industry or the energy healing world, psychotherapy world. Because there are people that still buy into that we're going to evolve in such an advanced manner that we won't need food, we won't need air, we won't need anything that keeps the 11 different systems going. And that's not where I'm going. So somebody posted a comment that I'm going to respond to because they're taking my stuff, they're taking to the extreme. And I don't like that, because what they're doing is they're trying to fit their agenda and twist my words around to say something that I'm not saying. And I don't like that. And so I'm going to respond to this comment because it is a twisting of my words that I don't appreciate. So this person goes, I think spiritually we are evolving. According to stuff I read, salt is actually key to this, as it literally helps us process memories, hence crying salt tears. And so be free from ancestral tribal patterns that are encoded in us. So we are evolving, and our genes are mutating as we're shifting into higher levels of consciousness, so that eventually our bodies won't need food like we do now. I'm deleting that comment. Delete. Because they're twisting my words. Seriously, twisting my words. And when you are focusing only on the salt, when you are and then here's the thing, people become like, they start becoming so nice. Like, well, I didn't mean it that way, Jillian. I didn't mean it that way. Yeah, you did. You meant to basically only point out the salt and that the body should die because we're shifting into higher levels of consciousness and all of that. And then what you do is you put your spin, your agenda on this. And that's not okay. Okay? This is not your psychotherapy group. This is not your energy healing group. This is not any group that believes that the body should die, but the soul lives on, and they go to the next plane and fly around and say hi to all their friends on the other side. This ain't the protocol for you if that is still your belief system. So I know who is, I tagged her in this because I want her to know that I know what she's doing. Okay? Because I don't want those type of people promoting my protocol, because they'll twist it around and then they will say, yeah, eventually you won't need food. Eventually you can just starve yourself. Eventually you just eat organic and that's it. And then eventually you'll only need salt and minerals and that's it. No, that's not where I'm going. Okay? The body, mind, and spirit, the body has 11 different systems. There is a specific order to how the body goes and does stuff. And why life exists. Why does life exist? Because there's a specific order. Why do people die? Because they violate the laws of life and they adhere to the laws of death. Because there's two absolutes in this world when it comes to body, mind, and spirit. Two absolutes, life and death. You're either on a life trajectory or you're on a death trajectory, but you really can't be on both. And if your mind is saying that the body should die and the spirit lives on, and you say you want to live, then you have an imbalance, a misalignment, and you are going to twist this protocol into something to your agenda, not the actual protocol. And so that's why I kind of focus on certain people, because I know that's where they're coming from. They're not saying so many words until they actually say it. And then I'm like, I knew it. I freaking knew it. So yeah, I vet people out very, very, very carefully. But then I also know what's going on in the undercurrent, because I know their professions. People make a shit ton of money off of messing with people's spirituality, messing with their hormones, messing with their biochemistry to where it has an agenda where the body doesn't need to be around. They're taking what I've already researched and twisting it to their agenda. And I see it. I know I give the energy healers out there, the psychotherapists out there, tools for their kit to go and play with their clients. I know they do that because I've taken stuff from the industry and I have then fit it to my agenda. But my agenda is about really body, mind, and spirit. It's keeping the body alive, the mind alive, and the spirit alive with an intention of indefinite, where the body doesn't die, the mind doesn't die, and the spirit doesn't die. But if you believe that the body should die and the mind and the spirit live on, this is not the protocol for you. If you believe there's an afterlife, if you believe that anything like that, this protocol isn't for you. Yesterday, somebody had a major healing revelation. There seems to be a major connection with the kidneys and the eyes. Okay? And so Packy, he just finally kicked the benzos addiction because he's been stuck on these painkillers for years and years and years. And the J juice helped him. And now he's going through the actual healing symptoms where he's feeling the pain. Yeah, you're feeling the pain and he's seeing the benefits. He passed a kidney stone and now he has his vision back, like to where it's like 20/20. Okay? And, you know, there are like 1 degree separation between specific conditions and then the body and certain systems and organs. And sometimes there's 6 degrees, sometimes there's 5 degrees of separation. Okay? And I can't tell you if you're going to gain your vision back. Just because he passed a major kidney stone and it was probably the most painful thing ever and he got his vision back, does it mean it's going to happen for you in that same manner? Not necessarily. It just so happens that there was that connection, but does it mean everybody's going to have that same kind of connection, that they pass a kidney stone or they fix their kidneys, they're going to have like 20/20 vision? I can't say, because the biochemistry is so individual for each. Everybody has so many different life experiences, so many different cultural experiences, so many different anomalies they already brought to the table from genetic history, that there's no way to predict. But we can say, okay, the possibility is there if you do the J juice, how it's going to manifest and when you're going to see these benefits. I can never tell you. I can't tell you if it's off of 2 cups, off of 5 cups a day, off of like if it's going to happen in 3 months or 3 years. I mean, these are the things that we can't guarantee anybody, because you might give up after a freaking week. Some of you are that weak that you will not be able to do the J juice for a week until after, or you go to the J juice for longer than a week because you can't handle the pain, you can't handle the smell, your life is too busy and too distracting, or you have an ulterior motive that you're making money off of the people out there that are dealing with psychotherapy needs. And, you know, it's like you really have to stay with the J juice. It's not a cure. It's not a remedy. It's not some wham bam, thank you ma'am, here you go. You get all your benefits in the next 6 or 3 months. I mean, I'm 45 years old or something like that. Going to be 46 pretty soon. And I had PMDD and a few hormonal imbalances, but I didn't have any major cancer, disease, or chronic illness. I wasn't severely obese. I don't know my family history because I was adopted, so I have no idea what I brought to the table except for what I experienced during my childhood as well as my teen years and then my early adult years. And that's it. Okay, so everything that had, you know, whatever condition I had was something I found out during my lifetime. There was nothing that I was told that I had a predisposition of. Now, with how I was raised will give you sort of like an indicator that if you're going to take all these pills, powder, supplements, and detoxes and prescription drugs, that yeah, you know, eventually that's going to tear the system down and render you then accelerating the aging process, you know, render you inert in the healing process, because that would be the mentality, which I see it already in my family. Their mentality is to take drugs, prescription drugs or whatever drugs. That's the mentality. And then you see the outcome of that. You see the accelerated death process, the aging process. Okay, so there's no way for us to predict exactly, but There are indicators and there are things say, okay, there is a relationship, but doesn't mean it happens for everybody. Because I'll tell you what, people have been doing the J juice and they haven't, some people have had, ringing in their ears, and some people have they've seen that disappear, and others are still experiencing it. Others, that have eye issues and they've been on the J juice, but maybe they've never had any eye issues. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to say because there's so many different people out there with so many different ailments that there's no way to predict if you're going to get some kind of reversal in your issue, like right then and there. Would you have to pass a kidney stone to get 20/20 vision? That's not like the rule of law that's what it's going to take to get your vision back to where it's 20/20, not like whatever that nearsighted or farsighted. Okay, so I don't want to put any kind of promises out there that you have to go through a kidney stone to do that. Okay, it just so happens that Packy had kicked the benzos habit with the help of J juice, is now experiencing the healing now for the rest of his body, because that was the first major thing that his body deemed was majorly a priority. And so that's what happened for him. Okay. And so, yeah, there's going to be miracles upon miracles, but we can't, you could probably list out all of your past issues. You can list out all of your present issues. As far as future triggers, you can look at your family history on whatever it is that you haven't triggered yet, to see if that's something that it may happen, because it could very well potentially happen. And also too, you've been exposed to all the viruses in your community. We don't live in a bubble. We hang out with different people. We pick up viruses and bacteria everywhere we go. And even though it doesn't come out right away that you're going to get some kind of exotic disease, but you never know as your body breaks down, because that's what happens in the matrix and the alternative matrix, is that the body breaks down and then diseases start triggering, because you are now weakening your immune system and weakening your 11 different systems, and then the viruses take over and exploit those weaknesses, and then we have these new diseases that are out there. Okay, so I want to go down my timeline real quick. But I just want to say that, if you still believe, and I know there's a lot of you that are in the energy healing world that only want to deal with the spirit and maybe lightly touch upon the body. But I'm telling you, if you are a psychotherapist out there, and I'm going to be very, very frank, if you are a psychotherapist and you haven't done the J juice to where you see a major difference, all you're going to be doing is pass along whatever it is that got you where you are today. And if you are aging today and degrading, that therapy, that mentality is going to be then coming from that perspective. And then you will basically say in not so many words that the body doesn't need to be around. The body can die, but the spirit can live on to where you don't need food. That's what people are saying out there. We're going to evolve to such a state. And that's where someone twists my words, and that pissed me off. That really pissed me off. That's some psychobabble that is going to then discount the body part of the process and only focus on the spirit. And that is not the point of J juice. And so I nailed that person. I knew that's where she was coming from, because yes, when you're coming from the energy / healing holistic psychotherapy world, that's the perspective. Because, I have a gut feeling, and I focus on certain people for a reason, because I know there's something there. They haven't said it fully yet, but give them enough time, they will tell me their truth. No matter how much I'm saying about body, mind, and spirit, that you need to have food, you need to have minerals, you need to have bacteria, you need to have, you're not supposed to be just living off of air, because there are people that will be only doing like air therapy. I forget what it's called, where you're just breathing and that's it. You're not eating or not, and that they're starving themselves. There are people that really believe that, and they're also aging. Okay, the specific measurable result with the J juice. Okay, the specific measurable result with J juice is that you look about between 30 and 40 years old on a continuous level. Once you hit that point of maturity, you should not be degrading. So there's a growth process, and then there is a where you're in, like at my age, when you're in your 40s, and you should not be degrading. There should be no symptoms. There should be no graying hair. There should be no wrinkly skin. There should be no obesity, no hormonal imbalances, no symptoms, and not because you're taking all of these different drugs to stop the symptoms, but there should be no symptoms at all. You should be able to go through each season with very minor upsets of homeostasis, because that's what goes on right now in Ohio. We have now a change in weather. Okay, when you have a change in weather, it upsets homeostasis and the body has to adjust, and then you will see certain symptoms. Some are going to be stronger than others. Like my dog, she had to deal with a change with some skin irritations. The pestilence was so huge out there in the backyard, they were jumping on her, but they weren't staying on her because I was only pulling like 1 or 2 off of her. But she still has to go through the change in upset of homeostasis, a change in the environment. Okay? And it's stronger in the fall than it is in the springtime. But from the winter to spring, it's still an upset homeostasis. And that's why you see the flu season happen. That's why there's flu shots, because people are still exposed to the viruses out there. It's not like they just disappeared and now they're all of a sudden they come back again every fall. No, what happens is the bodies become weaker when there's a change in homeostasis, a change in the environment. It's called adaptation. And so the flu season isn't manufactured. No, it's the fact that you go from hot to cold, the body has to adjust. And yes, it kind of lowers your system while it's going through its adjustment period. It kind of weakens your defenses, just like when there's a change and shift. Okay, with like, I don't know, when you have a war and there's a change and shift, or there's a reconfiguration of stuff. During that change and shift, there are holes that are open, and maybe a good prison system or a good war, they wouldn't have those holes open, but sometimes it does. And if the enemy knows there's a change and shift somewhere where not everyone's going to be manned at the post that they should be manned at, there's going to be openings. So that's the same thing when you have a change in your environment and the body has to adapt. It's a change and shift, and your defenses are a bit lower until you're able to adapt and then fix the weaknesses from that change. Okay, but what's going on right now in our society is that there's changes and shifts and changes in the environment, and the body's trying to adapt to all these different people and environments and things and pollution, which is only people who are weak. The body isn't repairing itself through those different changes. And when you're getting psychotherapy done on you and you're bringing up past issues, and then the body is still stagnated in its defenses and in its expellation process, when it's expelling stuff, you're going to be reinfecting yourself and then weakening and causing the whole mineral depletion. That's why you just can't do psychotherapy on people and think that that's just going to be a very long-term healing. That's why you can't just do body work on people, think that's going to be a long-term healing. There has to be a body, mind, and spirit, alignment with life as well as with therapy. People that just focus only on the head and all their past stuff, they're missing out on the body. And when they say that you're not going to need food in the future, are you freaking kidding me? Oh my God. I mean, that really did trigger me, because I knew I focused on this lady for a while because I was trying to vet her out. And finally, she gave me what I knew was going on within her, but she didn't want to say right off the bat until I gave her that opening. And that opening was about evolution and evolving and consciousness. And wow, she ran with that. She ran with that. So I don't really care what she has to say now from this point forward. She can be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I apologize. No, I already know what you're thinking. I already know where you're coming from. That's probably why you're not really promoting the J juice in the way that you probably should, and probably why you're not taking the J juice in the way that you should, because when you do the J juice, it's going to only help your clients and yourself. But when you have this focus that the body is not going to need food in the future, you're going to undermine the J juice. And that's what I see is people will undermine the J juice without really consciously thinking that they're going to do that, because their belief system is clouding and overshadowing the actual laws of the universe, the actual laws of the body. Because the body has specific laws that it needs to adhere to give continuous life or continuous death. And if you don't understand the laws of the body, as well as chemistry and biochemistry, you will find ways to undermine and justify. So if you're going to do therapy on anybody, you got to bring in the body, mind, and spirit. And that means that it's food. It's not just manipulation, the mind and the body. You are actually bringing in the right elements to then be able to allow things to be expelled. And it's not just the salt. See, I see this lady also focusing on just the salt. Just because you have salt tears doesn't mean that you just take salt. If salt was the answer, then we wouldn't need the lactic acid or the probiotics. We wouldn't need the micro and macronutrition, but that's what she has failed to understand. And it showed because she did not take into account the micro and macronutrition, the lactic acid. She only focused on the salts, which told me she did not get this protocol. She shouldn't be doing it. And I don't want to hear anything more about it as far as from her about this. So I'm just going to leave it at that, because that was just, that triggered me, because I already knew, a sixth sense already told me what was going on. And that's why I focus and try to vet people out, because I know where they're coming from. They're just not going to say it right off the bat because they don't want to trigger me right off the bat. They want to keep me on my good graces, but they're trying to pick my brain so they can then better their marketing platform, better their way, so they can improve their ways of communicating something that is going to only bring them more business. I know what goes on. People take my stuff and they twist it to their agenda for their business. I understand that. But I'm telling you, I recognize it and I don't appreciate it. So, you know, I'm over it. I may be just kicking her out of the group. So anyways, evolutionary adaptation is generational. Two choices in generational evolutionary adaptation. You degrade to the point of extinction with each generation becoming weaker, and we're already seeing that. Or you improve the fitness and diversity of mankind, guiding reproduction carefully without relying on incorrigible reproduction. Okay, so you can devolve generationally, and we're seeing that already. We're seeing kids that are developing faster, and they're so smart. They're going to college at 8 years old. Which, okay, that's great. But then you're going to see them get to a point where they're going to then be, you know, on that trajectory. In the Matrix, kids get symptoms in the Matrix, and that's a red flag. Okay? That's a red flag. So just because a kid goes to college at 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 years old, that's fine. Because what happens is when you see, well, how would I say this? What happens is when in the Matrix, if you're not doing the J juice, and I'm going to say that point blank, if you're not doing the J juice, you're seeing imbalances go on. Okay, you're seeing a highly developed brain with a body that hasn't developed that well, or is still developing, and there is a misalignment going on. So they may be very developed intellectually, but their body and their emotions and their hormones are still out of whack, that they haven't developed that portion of it, you know, in congruency. Because in our society, like back in the 80s and the 70s, our body and our mind and our spirit were relatively, you know, aligned in the development. You know, we saw, like, for many, many years that you go through, yeah, we had the gate system. We had special kids that were really, really, really smart. But for the most part, we didn't see too many kids that smart or have a special ability. We're seeing that now with the rise of autism, with the rise of other types like Asperger's, where they're very, you know, intense in one area and then very inept in another area. You're going to see all these like special abilities in different people because of the imbalances, because their body and their mind and their spirit are so misaligned that you're seeing things, you know, miracles happen out of a child that you wouldn't necessarily see like way back when. And it's not because we're improving. It means that, no, we are seeing that generational adaptation devolving. And now we're seeing kind of a chaotic, we don't see too much order. We had a bit of order, a couple, like, you know, a few, I would say back in the 60s and 70s, but in the 80s, things started happening, and, you know, behavioral problems and a lot of cancer disease and chronic illness, a bunch of stuff going on in the 80s. And so then it manifests in the 90s and the 2000s. And then you're seeing people are being afflicted with all of their issues at an earlier and earlier age. Okay, so, you know, you have two ways of generational evolutionary adaptation. You have a de-evolution, devolving, or we're going to improve fitness and diversity of mankind, guiding reproduction carefully without relying on incorrigible reproduction. And incorrigible reproduction is where you are just willy-nilly reproducing and you're not improving that reproduction system. You're not making it better. It's just people are just reproducing on bodies that have never really resolved their issues. And now we're seeing kids that are glitching even more. And that's why the state of our society is what it is because we keep reproducing on bodies that are not being taken care of. Okay? So here's another post I did. When the body's at its limit of prohormones, fatty acid, amino acids, and minerals, and it doesn't absorb enough to fix the weaknesses, and then you bring in more going over capacity, antibodies get created and try to keep the balance. There's two ways you die in this society. Is when you have so many imbalances. So so 2 ways pass away in our society: overabundance of amino acids, fatty acids, prohormones, and minerals, or not enough. So you have an imbalance in your amino acids and all of those things. And then when you have that imbalance, okay, then you have too many antibodies. So here's the thing. So you can have an imbalance, and then that will still, you will see mineral depletion, and then you will see, then what happens is an antibodies get created to try to keep the balance. That's the body's immune system, the defense system, try to keep the balance. But if you are bringing in too many heavy metals, let's say you drink a jar of Drano or something, antibodies get created to go after that poison, that overabundance of minerals, and that's when the body shuts down. Antibodies can shut the body down, no different when you get the wrong blood transfusion. The wrong blood in, let's say you're O negative and you're getting AB positive blood. AB positive has antigen, surface marker antigen A, surface marker antigen B, plus then testing positive for the rhesus monkey gene. And so when you're getting surface marker antigen A and antigen B on a body that's O negative, has no antigen in the blood, then that antigen will turn into antibodies if you do a blood transfusion, and that's what thickens the blood and shuts the body down, causes strokes and heart attacks. Okay? So too many antibodies thicken up the blood, causing strokes and heart attacks. And this is why electrolytes are supposed to thin out the blood. So if you do happen to get a wrong blood type in a blood transfusion, they bring in electrolytes. They bring in salt and water and other stuff to dilute those antibodies and dilute the poison. Sometimes you have to drink milk to dilute the poison. That's what they say. And from the, if you drink something that is bad, the poison control center says you call them, but then also drink a bunch of milk or water or something to dilute that, okay, to break it up. Okay, so, there's two ways to die in our study. Is the imbalances of those minerals and the hormones and the fatty acids, and then the overabundance of antibodies due to those imbalances. Okay, so, it's pretty cut and dry how people die in our society. And you're seeing it. You see imbalances in all of your stuff. So this thing is the vaccines. Current environment equals current vaccine schedule. Current environment. So right now, the environment outside, I go outside. I know if I actually took some glasses and I'm able to see all the viruses in the air, they'd be swimming with viruses and bacteria in the air. Okay? But we can only see in like one dimension at this point. Those that are on the death trajectory could probably see 2 dimensions. All right, if they're tapping into the ghosts in the spirit world, okay. But right now I can only see in 1 dimension. And so, so the current environment so the vaccine schedule, the current vaccine schedule is predicated on the current environment because it's about adaptation. That's why they target the kids and the elderlies, because those are the weakest people of our society. And they have to be able to adapt. So when your body's degrading, you still have to adapt to a society that is still very advanced in the data, in the viruses. And you have a weak body that needs to have help transitioning to build antibodies to fight off the aggressive messages, no different than a baby or a child or a teenager who still has a weak body trying to develop and transition. Okay? And so you're going to see, and here's the thing, the vaccine industry, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot no matter what, because they haven't figured out that symptoms and pain is a body trying to adapt. And maybe they have, and that's why they keep pushing the vaccines. But on the other hand, where it makes them a hypocrite is, and they're trying to give you all these remedies to stop the pain, to stop the symptoms. So why people are so confused by the vaccine industry and the vaccine injuries is because you have the industry trying to stop the pain and fix the injuries while they're trying to induce it at the same time. But they don't, if you don't believe in pain is healing, then there's no way you're going to be able to explain why the vaccines exist, why it is we need them to help people transition. And then when you have symptoms, it's the body trying to adapt. Okay? With this change of weather, I get more sleepy going through that transition, as far as just adapting from one climate to another. And maybe I have a little more mucus every so often, but that's about it. Maybe a little bit of dry skin, itchiness, as as we are transitioning to the colder weather. Some of you are down under, transitioning to hot weather, and it's still the same thing. Your body's going through an absolute homeostasis. If I was in Hawaii, 80 degrees, trade winds lightly blowing against my skin, I wouldn't have a upset of homeostasis, because it would be just basically summer all year round. There'd be no fluctuation in the environment for my body to have to adapt to. Okay, but no, I'm here in Ohio where it's aggressive wind, aggressive changes in the environment, just like in California. I mean, it got cold in California. I think, it gets to be freezing in California, Northern California, Southern California, maybe it'd be lucky if they would reach 32 or 40. Okay, but Northern California, I remember seeing frost on the windows, and 32 degrees was not unheard of. Okay, so, and that's pretty cold. That's very cold. So that's why, people were always sick during the season changes, and that's why flu season is around. That's why the flu shots are around, because the viruses don't disappear, but the bodies are going through fluctuations. So that's giving you guys a reasoning behind this, so you don't think the government's trying to kill you, for those of you that are still anti-vax. Okay, because you really have to understand the method behind the madness. You really do. And if you don't, then you'll never get J-juice, because you won't understand the symptoms. All right, so vaccines and biotechnology allowed the weak to escape Darwinism. You realize that those of you that were preemies, like I read somewhere that in PA, these preemies died of a bacterial infection in the NICU ward. Well, it's because they weren't strong enough. If you had issues as a baby, okay, you were not supposed to live. I wasn't supposed to live. What happened was they airlifted me out of Vietnam during the war. But that war was some kind of like population control when you think about it. And everyone that died was supposed to have died, and the babies that were born during that time probably were supposed to have died. But the ones that lived got lucky because of the West. The West wants to save people and give them life for a certain amount of time, but they rather give life, but they don't know how to sustain life. That's the problem with Western society and Eastern society. We want to give life to everybody, but nobody wants to sustain it. We want to give a chance to all the babies, but we want to kill off grandma. I mean, that's where the hypocrisy comes in. And so, vaccines and biotechnology have given people a chance at life. And then now it's up to you to sustain it on an indefinite basis. But then we have people who don't want to deal with pain, and they don't want to deal with symptoms. And so they want to take all these different drugs and detoxes and heavy, mineral conglomerations. And then they end up killing themselves anyways. So it's almost like all for naught. And then they don't even see the indicators out there. They don't see that aging is actually a disease. Okay. And so, vaccines and biotechnology have basically circumvented Mother Nature. They allowed you guys to escape Darwinism. So we keep procreating on weak bodies. No wonder we have cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and rapid aging, and acceleration of the glitching in our society. Because if we were to left it up to Darwin, our Mother Nature, hundreds of years ago, like way back in the bubonic plague, then we wouldn't have all of this war and activism and pollution. And pollution is because we have weak bodies that can't handle the environment. So we wouldn't have pollution, because pollution is predicated on the state of the body. We wouldn't have war, and we wouldn't have activism if we actually allowed Mother Nature to do what she should have done and stay there. But no, man had to come in and give vaccines and manipulate the hormones with your pills, power supplements, and procedures and operations to give you guys a stay of execution. So they're actually prolonging your death process versus saying, hey, Mother Nature meant for you to die way back when you were a baby, when you were weak. Okay. And so that's what happened. That's why we don't have the bubonic plague vaccine, because everyone that was weak died back then in the 1300s. But it's now starting to come back. It is starting to come back. Okay. And we're seeing that in California. So, so we're going to see now the weak bodies start, creating all the disease that were eradicated way back when. And then, yes, these diseases do shapeshift because they run through different bodies. And so what used to be like polio, which polio still exists, we'll have offshoots of polio, different paralysis. I mean, ALS is like an offshoot of polio, but now it's like all your body, and now you're just stuck in a prison of you can't even move. But that's because, you know, we have been taught that you have to escape pain, you have to take all these drugs, you have to go get therapeuticized to death. Okay. And then we have misalignment of the body, mind, and spirit, and people are promoting that because they can't handle the body and they have a business to run. So that's what started this whole transmission to begin with, is because people have businesses to run, and I recognize it, and they want to promote that the body will not eventually have to eat food anymore. Nope, sorry, we're not going down that road. That is the energy healing road that does not want to give any kind of credence to the body, that you have to have laws applied to keep the hormones, to keep everything. So, you know, I'm just like over that. I'm over that. So anyway, so Packy was saying that, so get this, he broke up and passed a kidney stone, and now he doesn't need glasses anymore. Jilly juice. Okay, as I talked about that earlier, that, you know, there could be some relationship. Not saying everybody's going to have the same relationship. Not saying everybody's going to have 20/20 if they pass a kidney stone. There's a lot of reasons why people lose their eyesight or have a degradation in their eyesight. It just so happens for him that the kidneys were really affecting his vision. And the fact that he passed the kidney stone gave him his vision back is amazing. And that's awesome. But is it going to work for all of you? It just depends on what your issues are and what started your vision loss to begin with. Because some people have lupus and fibromyalgia, and, you know, or they were born having eye issues. Okay. And maybe, you know, I don't hear too many people talking about their kidney stones with those, but you never know. So I talk about that. And yeah, there will be a time. Right now, we have kids that are developing very fast. Very fast. And they also have symptoms, because if you are a child in this society, you're going to have symptoms no matter what. But what would make a time where you have fast developing kids with no triggering symptoms? If they're on the J juice, they'll have symptoms as they change their upset of homeostasis. But if the parents get the kids on the J juice early enough, and they have such a great relationship, the kid trusts the parents and they don't like whine and scream and cry because they're drinking the juice, they will see a very smart child who will adapt to any environment because their body is well balanced. And yes, when you're growing, you're going to have growing pains. Okay. And so I don't think really, when you think about it, I'm talking about symptoms such as like a cold or a flu, but when the body is in pain in the growth process, yeah, your bones are stretching, your muscles are developing. When you are developing, it is painful. When you are healing, it is painful. Okay? Developing and healing are painful because you're seeing now in real time the amino acids, the fatty acids, the prohormones, the minerals building up every single cell and regenerating. Okay? You don't escape pain when the body's in regeneration mode. That's why we die in our society, because everybody wants to therapeutize themselves to death. They want to stop the pain, stop the feeling of being uncomfortable. They want to focus on the spiritual and forget the body, and then justify death. Well, it was her time. God meant to take her away, or the angels on the other side are like, okay, you know, it's time, or it's the Pleiadians saying, we're taking you back to our planet, the Pleiades, so you can now get away from the horrible reptilian Earth. I mean, there's so many stories of why it is people die and how they justify death. So, and then, yeah, this lady, Cherie, says, I found Jillian 2 years ago, and I haven't been sick once, not even a little, thanks to J Juice. She healed and sealed my body from cancer. I healed and sealed my body from cancer, disease, and chronic illness. Thank you for the amazing recipe that I can make myself. See, you know, this stuff is basically for free. What's not for free is the support. And if you want more details, some people just want more details. Well, I mean, right now, this book has a lot of like the stuff that I said like a few years ago, that's conspiracy and anti-vax, which I've totally, completely like reversed. But this next book with Kevin and I collaborating on it, It's going to go way more in detail. I'm going to be discontinuing this book because it's not going to be relevant anymore. It'll cost more to update this book than it is to just rewrite it, and with other revelations. And so if you want to see my thought process a couple of years ago where I'm like totally completely defending the anti-vax and demonizing foods, you can see that I'm able to argue both sides of the argument. See, that's a sign of a truly well-rounded person, and I don't mind saying so myself. If you can argue both sides and be convincing on both sides of the argument, but then finally you have to understand the laws, because anybody can make up a story or justify or find the evidence based upon the context. But when you actually say, okay, I believe people can live indefinitely, and I know that's a possibility, and here's why, how, and who, what, and where, that is what makes the difference between somebody just making up a story and finding all the evidence of why things exist. Okay, because look at this. With the anti-vaxxers, and they're trying to blame their vaccine injuries on the vaccines. Well, the vaccines are full of viruses, but they're attenuated viruses with adjuvants to stimulate the immune system to create antibodies so that way you are acceptable to the government. Okay, so when you go through symptoms and you get cancer, disease, and chronic illness, that's basically showing that the body is weak. It's going through an episode of homeostasis, a change. Okay, so the viruses, or the reaction to the viruses, is like a barometer letting you know where you stand. If you are getting a major reaction from the vaccines, you have a freaking weak body. If you are out there in the community, okay, and you don't get any vaccine and you still get sick, which is still the mindset of the holistic anti-vaxxers, to still get sick, you have a weak body. So, it's like no matter what, you'll find the evidence to support, oh yeah, the vaccines caused my injuries. No, they didn't cause your injuries. Your weakness caused your injuries. Okay? Because I can be around someone who has a flu virus or a virus, cold virus, and be asymptomatic. Obviously, there's evidence, someone said, that they don't get sick. They're on the JGs for 2 years and they don't get sick. So they can be around their community that hasn't really changed, okay, because the viruses are all the same, no matter what. But what's changed is their device, their body. They're stronger now to handle the messages of the universe, the messages of the viruses. They're strong enough. And they, then they're like, okay, this is great. I'm strong enough to handle the environment. But then those that have reactions and symptoms, yeah, no matter what, the viruses are going to take you down, whether it's in a vaccine or out there in the environment. But at least out there in the environment, you will die. Okay, not at least. At least out there with the vaccines, it's more controlled. Okay, so the potentiality of you dying from a vaccine is very, very slim, though you'll get a disease because you have a weak body, but at least that's your insurance policy, is cancer. But if you are of a very weak body, which most people do have weak bodies that are so afraid of their environment, they get exposed to a very aggressive virus from some communicable weak person that really mutated that strain. Yeah, they could die. And that's what happened with those preemies. Okay, those preemies died from a bacterial infection in that hospital. It's going to happen. Any kind of reproduction, or any reproduction, is high risk. Some people have higher risk pregnancy than others because they have lupus, they have fibromyalgia, they have all these different autoimmune disorders, and then they're dropping babies because it's the instinct of life is that when they see the body's on a death trajectory and there's chaos, they don't want to risk extinction, so they drop seeds. And that's when you see people when they get diagnosed with some kind of disease, all of a sudden they're now fertile. Well, it's not really all of a sudden, it's not a surprise. It's how nature works. That's how animals, that's how animals keep the species going. That's how humans keep the species going. It's just Mother Nature. But man has tried ways to circumvent Mother Nature and have people die longer. And then they are reproducing on bodies that shouldn't be reproducing, creating now more glitchy children that have that have major imbalances. And then that's when you see murders happen. That's when you see crimes happen. That's when you see activism happen. Okay? I mean, it's not rocket science, but it is when you think about it. And so finally, now we're seeing that, okay, after 300 years, so when did the first vaccine happen? Back in 1796, let's say 1800. So 200 years, 2 generations, 3 generations, we're procreating on bodies that shouldn't. And then guess what? The next generation is going to be weaker. And it's not going to be able to handle the vaccines or the different immunotherapies or procedures because their body's going to be that weak. And then people start turning to AI. It's okay, we're just going to put all of these different things in you to keep you going, which fine. Then they turn you into a robot because your flesh is now like so inept and inert that they have to turn to electricity and electronics. And so you're seeing them putting these things on people's heads to bring back the memories. And you're seeing people getting fit with prostheses and then, you know, machinery to do their movement and stuff. And that's where we're going because humans are going to be procreating themselves out of existence on messed up bodies because we haven't resolved the generational negative mutations, because there's good mutations and there's bad mutations. Okay, so okay, and so yeah, so I did have a video from yesterday that Mother Nature has a reason, has an order, and then the DNA and RNA. DNA is the blueprint, the RNA is how it gets expressed. Okay, and then vaccines and GLGs are really much the same thing because it's about transition and adapting to an environment. And then, yeah, it's all predicated on like how you react to your environment is based upon a weak body versus strong body. Okay. But, you know, this Mother Nature keeps messing with, or if man keeps messing with Mother Nature's, you know, balance, eventually, yeah, she will take back her power. So man can only mess with things just like, you know, when you guys take a cure. When you guys like take a cure, like let's say like cannabis, for those of you that are heavy pot smokers, and your pain still comes back and you have to find another strain. Well, during that time where your neuropathy has been like cured, where you don't feel the pain, that's no different than the last 300 years of where we are, you know, giving vaccines to kids and doing biotechnology and playing with herbs. Okay, it's a stay of execution. Okay, these last 300 years. But then you're going to see the degradation of society because we are now creating children and people who have not fully, you know, healed from the past because they're only focusing on the spirit and the mind and then forgetting the body and then trying to justify death, which is very, you know, so yeah, I mean, so 300 years, 3 generations of people reproducing on majorly messed up bodies, yeah, you're going to see, you know, the rapid decline of society, and you're going to see extreme mortality. I'm already seeing families getting, you know, processed out of existence. I mean, they won't even listen to my information, and then you see like in the mother, the father, the sister, all coming down with some kind of cancer, obesity, chronic illness, and whatever, and it's happening in the children. Because no one wants to fix the issues and the weaknesses. They all want to go and take their pills, power supplements, and therapies and listen to their friends who are degrading and aging and think that they're going to get the same, you know, outcome when biochemistries are different. So, you know, this is just something to think about, but I'm not going to allow anybody to twist my words, especially in the energy psychotherapy healing world. You know, when you are only working with the brain or the spirit, as somebody says, but then you're really ignoring the body and saying that it won't need food down the road, then you're justifying the death process. You don't belong in my world. If you want to justify death in indirect ways, I'm going to catch it. The body's always going to need food. The body's always going to need prohormones, fatty acids, amino acids. No matter how much you evolve, your body is always going to need food. You are never not going to need food. We are not going to turn into breatharians in the next 300 years. That is an allopathic, holistic mentality. Okay? And it's not acceptable in the Jeju's world. Not. And I caught it today and I knew it. So this person will know it now. Today, I know exactly where she's coming from and why I was heavily vetting her out. So I definitely have a gut sensation, a gut sense on certain people, especially if I know their background, especially if they're making money off of psychotherapy, especially if that is their livelihood. They're not going to want to bring in too much of the pain because then they would lose clients. And then they're going to take my words and twist it around to make their marketing that much you know, strategic. That's manipulation. I know it and I see it and I don't like it. So I'm just letting you know, I know it. I'm not stupid, but you have a chance to change your ways, you guys. I'm not going to kick her out of the group because I think she has potential, but I'm wanting her to know that I recognize it and she knows who she is. So anyways, you guys, have a good day. Stay on the J juice. Don't try to compartmentalize everything and think that everything is separate. Everything is connected. Everything is. You're never not going to need food. You're always going to need food. You won't need as much, and you're not going to play the discrimination game, but you will always need food. You will always need air. You will always need water. And if you have a weak body, you're going to have to then partake in the system. Those that are like, oh, I hate the government. I hate, you know, the allopathic industry and their body is degrading. Oh, I hate the chemtrails, but they're going to the hospital to get, you know, different things done to them. I mean, there's so much hypocrisy. Now is the time to stop being hypocritical and to be consistent in your thought process. If you want to be in the health and wellness world, then you got to stop your aging process because aging isn't healthy. Okay? So there are ways to be consistent, and that means that you have to deal with the body, mind, and spirit. The body first. The body has to be dealt with first, and not just manipulation and detoxes and all that, but actually you got to feel and bring up the pain to then heal the past, present, and future issues. And that's going to change your outlook with your mind. And then obviously your spirit is going to obviously change too. But it has to be in that order. And it cannot be through, I mean, you can work in your allopathic and holistic remedies because pain can be intense. But if you do too many remedies in the allopathic holistic world that overshadow J juice, then why even do J juice to begin with? If you cannot handle even any little bit of pain, then you should not be doing J juice. Because Packy said he had the most intense pain from passing that stone, and then he got his vision back. So sometimes you really have to feel the pain, and not because you're inducing it because you're harming yourself, because that's what happens in the exercise world. They're like, oh, no pain, no gain. Well, in the context of destroying your muscles and manipulating them to build them bigger and then destroying the rest of your body, yeah, in that context, no pain, no gain. But we're not trying to destroy things to build them up, okay? With the J juice, you're actually healing, and you're feeling the building blocks of your cells being built layer by layer by layer, and it's painful and it's not fun, and, you know, but it's something that has to be done. I mean, you really have to fight for your life to really, I mean, I don't know, you have to feel the pain to fight for your life. I mean, it just, me, I want to live. So I went through all that pain, went through all that stuff, went through all the bullshit of trying to answer to everybody. And now, you know, I'm proving it. Okay. So yeah. Anyways, I'm going to go do my thing, but you guys just chew on this for a while. And remember, it's body, mind, and spirit, not just the mind and spirit, but it's all the body and the mind and the spirit and the body first. And that means the J juice. If you're not doing J juice, then don't even bother trying to say that you're trying to help people and all this stuff, because now you're just doing a state of execution. No different than the allopathic world. Yes, thank you, Tiffany. Yeah. The allopathic holistic world. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.